everybody! Welcome to All Stars. I am Sal. I am joined, of course, as every episode is, by Joshua Williamson, acclaimed and famed author. I got to pinch myself every time we do the show.
Mostly just this is just us having fun, though.
It is having fun. No, it's
that people don't understand. Just us, like, because you and I would talk separately for a while, and then it was kind of like, we should record this.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's like, that was a show, what we just did.
I love doing this stuff. And it's been a minute, too, I feel like.
It feels like it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like we did one maybe like really early June.
We did.
And then we didn't do another one because of the crunch of San Diego, which is bearing down on us. But it was cool because we actually, it's funny, and this is what always happens, is that I think we should have recorded stuff in San Diego. We always talk about this. And you and I had moments where we were just like hanging out, and it was like, we probably should have recorded this. Like, even when we got to, actually, I'll text them to you. You have them too, the pictures of us at Deadpool.
Yes, I have a couple I should send you, yeah.
We should have planned, like, when we got there for the movie, update for everyone watch the last one. The last episode, Sal was like, hey, do you want to go see Deadpool Wolverine with me at San Diego? And I was like, hell yeah, we're doing that. Yeah. So we did that, and it was awesome. It was like, San Diego can be really intense, and it's interesting talking to people who have never been there before and having to explain to them, be like, it is an experience unlike any other convention. Everyone has their own strengths. It's like, I really like New York, I really like MegaCon, Fan Expos. They're all have their own flavor. San Diego is a whole different beast. It takes over a whole city. It feels like you're going to Disneyland. It's like, I guess it's the comparison. I guess I would say, though, the difference is that, like, I'm gonna walk back that statement to explain this. Going to New York Comic-Con is like going to Disneyland. Going to Fan Expo is like going to Disneyland. Going to San Diego Comic-Con is like going to Disney World, right? Yeah. Where it's just like, it is so much more sprawling. And there's times where you're like, I'll talk to people who go to San Diego Comic-Con but never walk on the floor.
Yeah. Oh,
they're never in the actual building. They go to all this stuff on the outside, all the experiences on the outside, and they do all the stuff. I
can imagine being a creative and not having a table. Like, you could probably get everything you need to get done at San Diego Comic-Con and never once actually enter the convention itself.
Dude, so Wednesday, so we'll get to this, why I was so happy we went to see the movie. So I got there on Tuesday because I had meetings really, really early Wednesday morning. And so I got there Tuesday, said hi to some people, saw James was there early, and Culver was there early, Tinian was. So I was able to hang out with them. But Wednesday morning, it was just nonstop meetings from 8:30 in the morning until, Yeah, and then we had dinner, but it's still meetings.
That's still a meeting. Oh, yeah. Everyone you're having meetings with is also going to be eating with you. That's just one long meeting.
It's just one long thing. Yeah, so we're all having these conversations. We're going with stuff. And so then Wednesday, I was able to get my badge. There was some drama with me getting my badge. And so I finally got my badge, and I was like, in that moment, it was funny. I had my badge, but I also had somebody else's badge. And I was like, I have to deliver this to somebody inside the convention center. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go in. I'm going to see what the new DC booth looks like, which was great. They had this really big, cool booth. It was great. It felt like more of a return.
Dude, with the return of the Bullet logo, do you think they'll bring back that big, gorgeous, 3-dimensional Bullet logo display they had at San Diego Comic-Con 20 years ago?
I wonder where that is.
It's you can't throw that out, right? Someone's got to have it.
No, there's some Indiana Jones warehouse. They have all this stuff.
There's all the pieces.
Yeah, I hope they did, because even when the old DC offices, they had these awesome doors where everybody's office had this really cool, just awesome doors that were comic art. You could tell someone was in there, basically.
Cool.
But one of my favorites was Jeff Johns had the Brian Boland Captain Cold cover.
Nice.
He had that was his door.
That's awesome.
This is giant Brian Boland drawing.
Yeah, where are those doors now?
Dude, where are those doors now? And that's something that nobody's able to answer. And I'm like, I get anxious. Did they destroy those? Oh, because you never know. Well, this happens when
they break down a set for a movie, and you're like, oh my god, these pieces of history are just being just wrecked apart by Teamsters. They were like, I don't have any love or reverence for this stuff.
No, well, it's funny with that. That TV shows and movies and stuff, if no one's thinking about it, they destroy those sets. Yeah. They don't maintain them. They don't go, oh yeah, we're going to put this in a museum. They go, nope, time to go. Especially with movies where it's they have limited studio space. And so it's not like they take the whole set.
No, they break it apart.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I went to I forget where it was I went to, but they were talking about this where they had filmed some of I think Batman Forever inside
Ooh.
a building, and I was like, I wanna go in there, and they were like, oh no, they filmed it there. They destroyed all that. That's all. When I was a kid, I would go to a lot of conventions, but they would go to these conventions. They were called Creation Cons, and they were basically like Star Trek conventions. So the company was called Creation. So it was like Star Trek. I'm trying to think what else there was. Mostly Star Trek, Star Wars. They would do stuff like, Mark Hamill would do a signing or something. Like they would do these events. And one year they did a Terminator convention.
No way.
And did we ever talk about this where they did a Terminator convention? Dude, it was so crazy because I got to meet Arnold Schwarzenegger. He came out dressed as the Terminator.
What?
I mean, it's a leather jacket. It's not like
what
I mean? He probably had that shit in his closet.
No doubt.
All of his kids like lost our minds. They put the kids in the front. It was this whole thing. I met Edward Furlong on an escalator. I just happened, he was on the escalator with me. And I happened to realize who he was, and I had a Terminator book. I'm like, can you sign this for me?
Nice.
And I realized how young he was. I think he was like, this is my first time signing an autograph because the movie hadn't come out yet.
Wow.
It was like maybe a month or two before the movie had come out.
So he's like 13.
Yeah, as a kid. I was a kid.
Yeah,
I was
right.
Probably like maybe 11, maybe 12. So it was like this whole experience. But the reason I'm telling you this is because at the ending, it was funny, man, because it was like a whole day thing. They showed the first Terminator movie. They did all this stuff. They had people come out and talk about the special effects. James Cameron came out very briefly. They had a bunch of people come out and talk about stuff, but it was weird because they couldn't really talk about the movie.
Sure.
Because they didn't spoil anything. And so Arnold Schwarzenegger came out for the very end. And I mean, like, basically walked on stage, waved,
and then got into it.
Said really quickly, blah, 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 and then, like, I'll be back, and then fucking left. It was like 2 seconds long. But in the middle of it, they did an auction, like a live auction for people on the convention floor for props from the movie.
Wow.
And they had, when Dyson has the...
the piece of the CPU.
Dude, yeah, and the hand.
The hand? Oh my god.
They were selling them, right? And so people were like, they had guns and stuff. They had all kinds of shit. People were like bidding like so much money. But one of the ones that always drive me crazy, and it haunts me to this day, is there was a piece of metal. It was a silver piece of shiny metal that was bent. And they were like, this is from the movie, but we cannot tell you what it is.
I know exactly what it is.
I knew you were going to know. I knew you were going to know. And Mr. Terminator writer, man. On sale in October, everybody. Pre-order
October
that
9th,
book.
pick it up.
I'm sure Sal will tell you a lot about between October.
No doubt.
But, hey, come on, order my boy's book. I know it's Declan's book too, but you should order it because Sal's working on it. All right, so somebody was so funny, like basically $500.
Okay.
And I remember watching the movie, and the moment that the T-1000 like slams the little claw down, and then Arnold shoots it, and it breaks off, and you see it like ting 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 ting.
Yep.
I was like, somebody has that in their office, like chilling on a shelf. $500.
Yeah, and they got it on the floor of the Terminator convention.
That's so cool. Okay, so rewind. So I finally got my badge. I had to give my badge to somebody else. I get to the floor. I walked through like the floor basically as quickly as I could. I was just like getting there, and I walked over. I saw the Image booth. I saw some stuff. I went over. I saw the DC booth. I ran over. I dropped the badge, and I got out. Right.
Yeah. That
was basically the majority of my experience on the floor.
Yeah.
I had a signing on Thursday. It was funny because Scott and I were walking to it together, and I got there and nobody was there, and I was like, comics always find ways to make you humble. It's all good. It's all good. It's all right. Tom Riley was there. It was for Duke and G.I. Joe stuff, and I'm like, it's gonna be all right. Like, let's just do this thing. And so I sit down. This has happened to me twice. This exact story has happened to me where I am very like humbled, and I'm like, you know what?
No one came. Right. Okay.
It's okay. This is comics in San Diego. It's Thursday. You know what? This is life sometimes. No big deal, And I sit down with Tom, and I'm like, all right, man, let's do this. Let's sign some books. It'll be good. And then I look at somebody from Image, and I'm like, all right, cool. And they're like, are you ready? And I'm like, ready for what?
Yeah.
Like, me and Tom are just going to hang out. Like, Tom Riley and I, like the artists on G.I. Joe and Duke, we're just going to hang out.
Yeah.
And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, there's a big ass line over here.
Yeah, it's against the wall.
It's
behind
against the wall. Yeah, it's over here. It's hidden. It's this whole thing. I took a video of it because I was like, I was like, all right. It was like, it's just one of those funny things where you're humbled, but at the same time, you're like, damn right, there's a line.
Yeah.
And then I went to the line. It was like this long ass line. So we signed for that whole hour nonstop. It was tough. Oh my God, we're not going to make it. Like, I had another thing for DC I had to do. We were signing posters. So I was like, holy shit, we're going to run out of time. And I was literally walking to the DC booth with people following me, still signing books.
Oh, that's cool.
As we were walking to the DC booth. So it was good. But that was it. Like, I never looked at anything. I never went. I'll make a round of like
hit a couple of booths,
go to Artist Alley, look at stuff, buy some stuff. I didn't buy shit.
Yeah,
didn't buy nothing. I was very thankful that Hasbro gave me something. I'll show you. They gave me the cool Cobra Commander Once a Man toy.
Oh, nice.
It was funny because it was like a mission. Like I was like, I want to make sure I get this, so they got me. This is
nice.
Super
that was
cool.
Nice.
Yeah, it was great. Cool. They gave one to Kirkman too.
Oh,
but like
you didn't have to already.
Yeah, they gave one to Tom and to Sean. Like basically everybody works on the book. They gave one to, but that was so. It's just very intense. Like every time you're there, it's like you're doing something. Like I showed you my schedule.
Oh my God, that schedule! I was like,
yeah, it was like 8. Yeah, it was like 8 every hour from 8 to 9 at night.
Yeah, was
a thing. It was something. So that's why when you were like, do you want to just leave and go watch Deadpool Wolverine? I was like, you betcha.
Yeah.
You betcha. I have it scheduled. In my mind, I keep calling it, it's funny, I never call it Deadpool Wolverine. I always tell people either I call it Deadpool 3.
Of course.
Or I say Deadpool versus Wolverine, which I feel is also accurate in some ways.
That is accurate. Oh, it's very accurate for the movie, but also that's your comic book brain, man. That's just because if you could call a book Deadpool and Wolverine, or you could call it Deadpool versus Wolverine and make and sell more copies.
Well, I think there is a Deadpool Wolverine book right now. I think
there is. It's Deadpool and Wolverine WW3. You get a Kubert on a book, it's going to be fire.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I love Adam's work, especially Wolverine. Everything. Yeah, that he's he's one of my favorite Wolverine artists. He's definitely he's one of those artists. If he's on a book, I will get it. So with that one,
literally every time I see the name Kubert, I'm like, well, boom, doesn't matter. It's Andy Adam. I'm down.
Yeah.
Did I ever tell you I have a very brief Kubert? Well, it's an Andy Kubert story, but Adam Kubert did Inc. Predator versus Batman. I have a very brief Andy Kubert story where I was at I was at New York Comic Con, and Dave Gibbons was doing a signing. Dave Gibbons, of course, the artist on one of the most influential graphic novels of all time, and I had my Batman versus Predator mini poster that came in one of my prestige copies of BVP, and I wanted him to sign that because he wrote Batman versus Predator. And
I've heard you call it BVP before. I would call it that forever now.
I only call it BVP
forever now.
Nice.
That is his new title, and somebody needs to get that logo going right now.
I know it's.
We're due another. There should be another Batman Predator. It's never been now, but they should have done it.
Yeah, on our show we just covered BVP 3, which it's diminishing returns with those crossovers. But
that's at the Paul Glucci one.
No, that was the second one. That's BVP 2. Blood Match.
Huntress in the
Huntress is the second one. No, it's weird. The first one, nobody. Second one, Huntress. Third one,
who's
Robin.
The third one? Who's the artist on the third one?
Rodolfo DiMaggio drew it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have to. I don't remember that one that well.
Yeah, it's utterly forgettable. But
which is the one where like multiple Predators come and they have a Batman statue?
Yeah, that's the second one.
Oh man, apparently I only know the second one.
Yeah, well,
I know the first one really well. I know the second one.
First one's amazing. Second one, you could tell like they were thrilled. Like I remember my comic shop had a poster for it. Like people were hyped for Batman Predator 2.
Yeah, honestly, you got Paul Glucci. And Paul Gluci is like known for doing like awesome fight scenes and obviously like ninja stuff. Seriously,
there's a ninja in there.
Yeah. I know, but I'm just saying like I thought the Huntress was the third one.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, because Huntress is in the third Robin series.
Yes, Robin 3 Cry of the Huntress.
That's probably why I'm getting. Yeah, I think that's why I'm getting them mixed up because Joker is the second one. Joker's Wild.
Joker's Wild. Yeah. Oh man, what great Robin books.
Cards.
Oh, yes. I got them hologram cards.
Oh, but those Robin ones, man. The most frustrating lenticular things ever is this weird. If anyone doesn't know what we're talking about, go to a comic book store and see if you can find it. Because if you see it online, you are not gonna. You're gonna be like, "That's weird." You got to see it in person.
You got to see it in person. And folks, if you have your Robin 3 Cry the Huntress motion cover, you can pull it out, flip it over, and get a totally different image.
That's right. That's right.
Oh man, but yeah. So anyway, I go to Living Legend Dave Gibbons, and I bring up my Batman versus Predator poster. And he looks at it, and his face lights up because he's just been seeing an ocean of yellow all day, and he goes, and he turns to whoever he's working with, and he goes, "This is the Batman comic I made with Andy Kubert." And then he goes, and he happily signs it, and he's just like, "I had so much fun writing this book," and he was doing free sketches, and so I hand him my sketchbook, and
what year was this?
This is, oh man, I want to say it was like 2012.
Oh man, you're still doing free sketches? Dang.
I know, it was late. It was late in the game.
Yeah.
It might have been 2015. I don't know. It was. Here's how to date it. He was promoting Madefire, or
oh yeah, then you're talking big time 2012.
He gets the sketchbook. He's about to put pen to paper, and he looks at me and he goes, "It's going to be Rorschach." I'm like, "That's fine." He's like, "Oh, okay." And so
that's funny because he probably knows how to draw Rorschach like in 2 seconds. That's why.
What he was only drawing Rorschach. Like he was just like, he's like, "Oh, this guy likes Predator. He likes Batman. He's not a Watchmen fan. Like, he probably wants me to draw like a Batman and Predator. I'm not going to do that." He's like, "Oh, but you do know my work for Watchmen." I'm like, "I am familiar. I'm not going to.
I only read Batman and Predator exclusively, and
or
this
combined.
Was very special to me. They were in one book together, so
so I'll make the arrangements." But yeah, no, it was just, "It's gonna be Rorschach." I'm like, "Oh no, I still like Watchmen." He's like, "Oh, okay." Immediately just hammers out a freaking Rorschach. It's amazing. But it was a really fun little interaction, and he was such a gentleman. But I love him being like, "Andy Kubert and I made a Batman Predator story."
Now, well, here's my question though: has Andy ever signed this poster?
Mm-hmm. I did get Andy at the same show for a completely different moment. He was there. He was. It was one of those weird things. Back in I didn't experience the Wild West of Comic-Cons like you did. You had like the kind that were depicted by like the show Freakazoid, where it's like a big open floor with a stage, and the guest of honor is on the stage, and you can like throw tomatoes at them. Like, that experience is something that I was alive for, but my parents kept me very away from. Like, if they knew it existed, they were like, "Don't let the boy know about this. I don't want him to be in that world." It's bad enough we have to take him to the comic book store. So, but even back in like 2012, 2015, like you could navigate your way around a con and, BS your way into a scenario you had no business being in. And I
all the time. Get to a party, get
to a party, get into a signing. Yeah, absolutely.
I was on in the early 2000s to be like, "Oh man, dude, I had everybody would give away posters. Posters. Tell me your Andy thing. We'll talk about posters, but go ahead. And free shit at conventions because I was like, get free shit. Also, if you had an exhibitor badge, they used to not stop you from getting exclusives. They'd be like, "Yeah, whatever." Now they're like, "Absolutely not. You have to have a guest badge, even a pro badge."
Oh, I know. I know. Yeah. No, I thankfully that never really, like, I don't need like tchotchkes and stuff. And I just wanted the experience. I wanted to meet people and just interact with them and have that moment. My buddy actually used to get like sketches. He has like he used to just get all these comic book backs. He has like a Jim Aparo profile of Batman for free and stuff like that. Just amazing stuff. I think I showed
you mine, right? Like, I have all those. Have those Frank Quietly, which I'm like, that would never happen now.
Never happen today.
When I saw Frank recently, Quietly, I'm not going to use his first name because we're friends.
Well, and there's a lot of Franks. It's going to be tough to keep him.
And I saw him recently, and we were talking, and I was like, "Yeah, it was the first time I had seen him in over 20 years." And so we were talking, and then I was like, "Oh yeah, I met you at San Diego Comic-Con, and you drew a bunch of stuff for me just for fun. We were talking, and you drew all this stuff for me." And he was like, "I've only been to San Diego Comic-Con once."
And that was the time.
And I was like, "Dude, I mean, I have them. I remember it. And I have my JLA Earth 1 that he did with Grant it got signed by Frank, and it's the tiniest signature. His signature is so tiny. But yeah, so did Andy draw anything?
He did not. He did not draw anything. He was
comment on the fact that there was a Rorschach drawing on it.
No. The Rorschach was in a sketchbook. Thankfully, it was separate from the.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I get it now.
See,
this is what I misunderstood. I thought you were saying that
Oh, I'm going to draw a Rorschach on your Batman Predator poster. No.
Yes, that's what I thought happened. And I'm like, this is so wild.
No, I had him. I go up, I go to get the signature from Dave Gibbons, and I'm done getting the signature. And his handler goes, he's doing free sketches too. Like, oh, don't forget your free sketch from,
that would never happen today.
And I'm like, oh, right. Well, Mr. Gibbons, I do have a sketchbook. Would you mind filling it with one of your drawings? And he's like, it's going to be Rorschach. And I'm like, that's completely okay.
Yeah, you'd be like, yeah, of course.
Oh no, I was like, I still no. I don't need you to do a custom Predator for me. You didn't draw a Batman Predator. You But anyway.
Yeah. That's oh my god. Yeah, none of that would happen.
no, but Andy was in a booth for something else. I believe it was the Marvel booth. And I think he was doing some signings for something. And they were done. Like it was like, they were done doing the signings and he was just still at the table. And I was behind the table. And I'm like, man, it's just too bad I can't. And then I looked behind, like I just saw him from behind me, and he's just sitting there, and I'm like, hey, Andy, do you mind signing my Batman Predator poster? He goes, here you go. Like it was one of those I was over his shoulder basically behind him, and I'm like, hey, you're Andy Kubert. Do you mind signing this? He's like, sure. And then I remembered I had a girlfriend I wanted to impress at the time, who is also my wife now, so it's okay so let's say.
I was curious. I was going to ask. I was supposed to be like, is this the same?
I never had a Comic-Con with a different woman. It was always the same girl actually my first Comic-Con was with my future wife. Like I've never been to a Comic-Con with somebody else.
I have my story is the opposite. I don't know if I want to get into this in air, but I have gone to many conventions with many women.
I can't imagine them sticking around for very long if I did bring them at this point. Like,
well, even my wife, when my wife and I had just been dating for we weren't dating. I feel like my wife and I, we went on one date and then we were together. So it's like, you know what I mean? It's like one of those things where we've just been together since the day we met kind of thing.
Yes.
I feel like, I think we had been dating almost 2 years. Is that right? Anyway, so she came with me to New York Comic Con. She walked the floor once with me for 15, 20 minutes. And then she was like, we're in New York. I've never been to New York before. I will see you later.
Right.
And then she took off. And I think I told you part of this when I saw you last, because I was like, one of the best parts of that was that she got us tickets to go see a Broadway play.
Yep.
And we went and did that. And that reset my brain. And we did it on Friday or Saturday night. I can't remember, but it reset my brain. So I didn't feel, because you're at the convention, it's so intense and so many people. And that's we were talking earlier about how there was a party that everyone was going to on Thursday night. And when I got there, I was like, oh, not for me. Way too many people here. Way too much people, too much stuff going on. I got out of there. And you said that you saw me from a distance.
No, my wife saw you. That was one of those things where I was talking to people. I was holding court, blabbing. And then my wife goes, Josh just left. And I'm like, oh.
And I was only there for we
didn't even see you come in. That was the thing. She was like,
yeah, I got there and I was like, oh, this was a mistake. And I saw Culver, and I ran out of Culver to say hi to him, and then he was just like, "What are you doing here?" Because then he was like, "I never thought you'd be here." And I'm like, "Who did I?"
He was the first guy to say hi to me at that show, or at that party. He was like, "Hey," I'm like, "Oh."
Yeah, this is much more. This is where Dennis and I are very different on some stuff, because he's much more of a social animal than I am, and I am just
nah.
No, this is way too much.
You're the kind of guy who goes to see a movie at San Diego Comic-Con.
That's right. That's right. We left. We took off. I saw you. We had breakfast and we got the hell out of there.
We did.
Went to the movie and we got there, and that was so weird because it's it was funny because it was we were far away from the convention, so we were completely out of convention land.
Yeah,
and it was hot.
Yep.
It was it was just a different experience than what my brain was already accustomed to at that moment. Because at that moment, I'm used to a million people around us. Yep. You're constantly go. You're in the convention center. There's stuff going on, and then all of a sudden, you and I were at a mall at 9 in the morning.
A sleepy mall at 9 in the morning. There was no one there. We were walking around. We literally saw the comic book store next door to it was closed. Couldn't even walk around. We did actually after the movie was over.
We took it out. It was a good start.
Such nerds. I love that. I love that because I do it every time. Whenever I travel for anything, I'm like, is there a comic book store around here? And
as if you don't. Yeah, it's it's such a weird thing. Is you can go in there and buy stuff. The funny thing about us leaving is that the Jim Lee panel was at, I think it was at 1:45. Might have been at 2. I had 1:45. There was a moment in the middle of the movie where I suddenly had a deep fear I was not going to make it for the panel.
Yeah.
Just suddenly erupted inside me. It was like, wait a minute.
What time
Am
is
I
it?
not going to make it back in time? And I was fine. It was funny because when the movie ended, I very quickly like set my phone out, looked at it, and I'm like, oh, we have plenty of time.
Right.
We're fine. But
I could feel you sweating bullets when the previews, was 30 minutes into previews, and you're like, dude.
I was like, what are we doing here? No, that was more. I didn't have any fear in that moment. It was only like in the middle of the movie that I was like, oh boy, I hope we make it back. But what's crazy is we got back. I saw you. We all went our separate ways. I went to the bathroom, and then I started making my way to the panel.
Right.
And I passed somebody who works for DC, Carrie. She's great. I passed her at one point, and she was talking to somebody at the Marriott. And I think she was still managing, like, here's what we're going to do. And I saw her, and I'm like, you know what? If Carrie's still here, I'm good on time.
Right.
Like, that means I'm good. And then I went, and I got to the convention center, and I got up to the green room to go to the panel. And somehow, Carrie was already there. And this is not because I believe she learned how to teleport or something.
Right, of course.
She probably just knew the back channels on how to get there very quickly. Yeah. Like, she knew what to do. But I remember even saying to her, I'm like, how did I beat you here? And she's like, you didn't. And then she was because she was like, we gotta go. Like, it's time to get up. We gotta go. So it was crazy how quickly. Like, it was funny. I didn't feel like, oh no, I was almost out of time until I got to the green room, and then I'm like, wait a minute, when does the panel start? In 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So
like, really kind of close.
We made it. But you know what? Totally worth it because that movie was dope.
Yes.
And we're going to get into spoilers right now, everybody. If you haven't seen it, it's been 2 weeks.
You've seen it. Folks, it made over like $450 million the weekend we saw it.
I know people who have seen it twice already. I want to go see it again. There's no way I have time to do that. I might sneak off sometime next week. I really enjoyed it. You and I was concerned you were going to be like, this sucked. And I was like, oh no. But at the end of that movie, both of us, we both had like sighs of relief.
Yep. We were like, that was
and
dope.
Immediately we're like, we did it. And also, it was one of the best ways to see it because, yes, we're next door to a comic store, basically, right? It was just me, or was like every single person in that theater wearing either a Deadpool or Wolverine shirt but us, right?
Yeah, they were there to play. They were not they were off the street. They were there. And they weren't like, it wasn't like they all had the same idea. Like, they were all from the convention. These are like regular folks who maybe didn't even know there was a con happening. They were like,
regular San Diego nerds who were like, we're going to go. And dude, and what was spoiled for you before? What got spoiled for you?
Okay,
because Tiffany said something got spoiled for her before.
Yeah, she got spoiled. Well, it was all the, I think she got spoiled on Chris Evans' cameo.
Oh no!
Yeah. I knew Daphne Keane was in it.
That I got ruined between them before.
But that and I suspected that like some Fox non-X-Men characters would show up, but I didn't know. I didn't know.
I didn't think that either, dude. The Chris Evans beat got, dude. They got me.
Yeah,
I 100% thought it was Captain America.
I did too.
What I thought was going to happen was I thought he was going to yell like Hell Hydra or some shit. Like, just keep bringing that back around.
Oh my god!
But it was weird because when he landed, I was like, hell yeah, it's Captain America. But I kept thinking like, then my brain. It's funny how like time slowed down because I was like, okay, what's the gimmick, right? Yeah. I'm like, okay, it's Captain America. So at no time did I think it wasn't Captain America, and he had the hood up, and I'm like, was anyone else ever cast as Captain America? Like, was that ever a thing where there was a rumor, kind of like Tom Cruise's Iron Man or, like the Channing Tatum thing? Was there anybody in the running for Captain America? I'm like, oh, wasn't the guy, it would have been sucky, but John Krasinski from The Office?
Yes, he was. He was almost Captain America, yeah.
But it wasn't him. And also that would be weird because it's like, he's already done that with Mr. Fantastic.
Exactly.
So I'm like, that's the gimmick, but I'm like, knowing this movie, Deadpool would make fun of it and be like, didn't we already do this?
Yeah.
But when he pulled the hair back, I was like, hell yeah, that's Captain America. But Chris Evans as Captain America, he is buff.
Yeah.
Like, he is a big dude. And I'm like, what's going on here? Because he's not big.
Yeah.
Like, you could tell. And I'm like, did they just pull him off the street and be like, you're playing Captain America. Here's this like torn poncho thing. We're putting you out there. Like,
yeah.
I was like, he's not get buff for this role because it was a last minute thing. Like, what is going on? So I knew there was something up. And I'm like, oh, his logo is going to be different because they're hiding his logo. At no time did I think he wasn't Captain America.
Yeah.
at no time. And so when he said "flame on," I mean, dude,
Oh,
you were there. We all fucking lost our minds.
we did. No, the whole theater was like, what?
Yes!
And they were happy. Like, they were thrilled that, like,
Dude,
Johnny Storm came back. It was a really cool moment.
I thought that he was gonna use the fireball on Pyro. Pyro was gonna turn it back on and light his ass on fire, and that was gonna be it. But then he's like an important part of the movie.
Yeah,
like,
no, I genuinely.
Like he says more stuff going on. It was
Yeah.
like, and that was the part that I was the most happy with. Was like every time there was a cameo, the cameo was more than like a walk on.
Yeah,
because it's like even when they were in, because you think of also logistics of how they film this, how they keep this shit secret. How much time do you have with these actors, right? Like, is this a day of shooting or is this a week of their lives? Like, because that can make a big difference, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, when they got into that room, which was clearly like a Scarlet Witch room or something, right? Whatever.
Yeah, her statue from like the Wundagore Mountain is in there too. So like that's a whole thing.
There was stuff going on. There was that skull. Somebody, I'm sure if I go on YouTube, somebody's already broke down every time.
I saw. Yeah, TikTok has been pushing me every single moment from the movie and all the different variants. Like there were characters in there. They were like, oh yeah, no, that's supposed to be Olivia Munn Psylocke in there. She's not Olivia Munn, obviously. In fact, Tom Jane's Punisher's the Russian is in it. You know, there's a lot of...
That's who I thought, but that's not Kevin Nash.
It is not.
So I'm confused who that's supposed to be. So it's like... Because that's what I thought, too. I'm like, is that who that's supposed to be? Is that... there was stuff like that, but I'm sure somebody's broken it all down. Listen, if we hadn't seen it that morning, everything would have been spoiled for us. Can you imagine if we had seen it today? We would know the whole fucking movie.
Dude.
The amount of memes I see with Channing Tatum...
Oh, my God. Oh, that day, Gambit was trending on Twitter. Just the word Gambit.
Yep. I saw that too. We would have been screwed. Like, there's no way we would have avoid it. But yeah, so the Laura Kinney thing, that was the only thing that ruined for me ahead of time. And I'm like, that makes sense. But it was the same thing where I'm like, that's going to be a small cameo. Like, it'll be a little thing, right? I didn't think it'd be like a thing, you know? I thought it'd be more of like weird, we're on the Logan world for a hot second, so you're going to see a little bit and then we move on.
Yeah.
But it's funny because your brain is constantly doing math while you're watching it. And it was like, when they got into that room, their little bunker, and Elektra comes in, and then Blade comes in, and then Channing Tatum Gambit comes in.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, they're never leaving this room.
Right, I totally.
Exactly. Like, this is the entire cameo. Is they filmed this shit in a day, and they're never gonna leave this room, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that is not what happened.
No, they keep going.
So it's like they're in the movie, and it was like, dude. Good job on them for keeping a secret that long,
right?
And we were 5 days past the premiere.
Yeah.
And also, this is a thing for me versus you, as we discussed earlier. You do much more engagement, which also means you have to look, right? Like, I pay somebody to look, so I don't have to.
Exactly.
They manage all of it. So if I could go a whole week without looking at the internet outside of emails,
that's awesome.
My wife and I will send each other memes on Instagram sometimes.
Oh, sure.
Every once in a while, some shit will get, a little thing here and there. It's like, I watched Ghostbusters Frozen Kingdom. Is that what it's called?
Empire.
Frozen Empire. Did you not like it?
I liked it a lot. No, I didn't think it sucked.
Oh, you did? I don't think it sucked either. It was weird because basically it felt like they took an episode from the cartoon and made it a movie. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, it was just that. And it was like, while I was watching it, I was like, this is a really expensive episode of a TV show.
Yes.
And that's nothing wrong with it. It made me be like, why isn't there a Ghostbusters TV show? Like,
dude, especially because you get somebody like funny, like you could get the whole production crew of Veep to make a Ghostbusters show. And it would basically...
Everybody who's in that movie, every single actor in that movie could be
improv comedic actor. Well, that's true. And they're on TV.
Well, that too. Like, you're not talking about... I mean, Paul Rudd...
He's a movie star.
Paul Rudd is the biggest actor in that movie, right?
Yeah.
He's been on TV shows before.
He was on Friends.
Yeah, he could be totally in a show. Get 8 episodes a year or whatever,
Oh, yeah, right? The other thing is that movie was like a weird pilot for 3 other Ghostbusters movies where they're
they're like, here's the science lab thing with the gear logo, which was a good idea.
It's a good logo, but I'm also like, that's for them, you could tell like that's the show. The show is the lab show.
Yeah,
but
it's
like
the lab show.
You could do like a junior Ghostbusters. Here's the kids, and they're making a show, and they're making a movie. You got the like mid-tier Ghostbusters, like the millennial Ghostbusters. Here's like Paul Rudd, the wife, and maybe 2 other fun. Oh, Kumail Nanjiani, and then you got the old Busters, where it's like the originalGhostbusters. And I'm like,
you could literally do a whole show just about Dan Aykroyd's shop.
Right?
It's like all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, raise a cult. That'd be a cool show.
Yeah, all that stuff. Yeah, there's all kinds of things in there. But yeah, so when we were watching Deadpool Wolverine, dude, I don't know. It's funny. Somebody this week was like, "Oh, I saw it the second time. And it was better the second time." And I'm like,
Really?
"Excuse me, what?" Sorry, what?
Yeah.
The hardest part of that was like going back to it felt like I was holding on to a special secret when I got back to the convention.
Yeah.
Because every time somebody found out that we had seen it, they were like, "What do you think?" And I'm like, "I can't say shit to you." Right? I'm not going to be the one to spoil it. I'm not going to be the one to be like, "Oh, this happened, this happened, this happens." People are asking me questions.
Oh, sure.
Man, I enjoyed it. You should see it.
Yes, that's all I said. Although one of my colleagues was like, I heard about Gambit. Does Channing Tatum suck?
No, he's awesome.
And I was like, no, he didn't suck.
Dude, he's perfect. But that's the joke, though. Because we talked when we were watching it. The moment he came into the screen, I was like, how's he doing the accent? And I was like, they're going to clown his accent. There's no way. And they did, and it was beautiful.
And it was great. It was totally worth it.
And it was so funny. It totally worked. But also, when he was running around being Gambit,
that's the thing.
That was dope.
I was like, that's what I explained to my
cards. You got the staff, you got the thing,
and it was R-rated, so he actually got to like follow through. It wasn't just superficial explosions. Yes. It wasn't just like cosmetic. No, he blows shit up.
A good year for Gambit, like a good Gambit year, dude. It's good
time for a Gambit book. Marvel.
Don't they? I feel like I'm saying this out of turn because I don't know anything about anything Marvel's ever planning ever. But it's like I know he's in Gale's Uncanny X-Men. Book. And he's
we got a Storm book, we got a Jean book, we got a Wolverine book. Where's the Gambit book?
It's funny because I think when I started, I thought I told you before that I always feel like Marvel is something people collect while DC something they read. I was just being trouble. People are like, what? And I'm like, but here's my reasoning: is that like if you talk to people who are like collectors, it's easier to get Marvel. It used to be. It's easier to get Marvel first appearances than DC first appearances because you're just like, I love the Flash, and it's like,
well, here's the 1940.
Obviously, Spider-Man is hard to get. Amazing Fantastic 15, Fantastic Four #1 to get that, or even getting X-Men #1 is difficult. However, if you were a collector in the 90s, if you were like, I saw the first appearance of Gambit, it's like it was 266. It wasn't that hard, and that was the first book I bought. Because I think I told you before about how I would go to conventions, I would buy stuff, or I would stare at it was Infinite Gauntlet, like Infinity Gauntlet #1. It was like $10, and I was one day at $10. Like I always tell a story, like that's the thing. And then, but Uncanny X-Men 266 was the first like book where I was like, I'm gonna buy first appearances. And because I have a bunch now, I have Punisher and Wolverine and stuff. Like I have a bunch of Marvel first appearances, but that was the one where I was like, I'm gonna get that one. And it was Gambit's first appearance. But since then I've sold nearly my entire comic collection, right? Like I sold probably like 95% of it. Then I just kept I kept Batman, Detective, Flash, and a few other little ones. But I told you I sold my amazing collection, and I regret it.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, because I had everything from 20 to present day in that moment, and I sold it, and then I ended up buying the first appearance of Punisher again. But I sold that Uncanny X-Men 266, and so every once in a while I'm like, and my first appearance of Deadpool, which
oh my god.
Also, it drives me crazy because I'm like, when I sold it, it was in the recession, so it wasn't like
it wasn't like the peak.
It wasn't peak like right now, Yeah. And now I know anything with Gambit is like even the Gambit #1, the cool one has his name big. And
really? The Howard Mackey book?
Yeah,
that's a Lee Weeks book. That looks good. But
yes.
I got 3 of those. They came in the grocery store Marvel like package thing. Like you could get the whole book, like the whole series, for like $3.
Dude, now it's like it's all high up there. So I've thought about trying to get that Gambit again. But yeah, it's a good year for Gambit. It's impossible to get that. I can't think of anything I had a complaint with the movie. I told you I felt like the third act, I could feel writer hands on it. You could feel in the third act, they were like, no, they're not going to fight Paradox. They're going to fight Cassandra Nova again. But that fight scene with them in the street, so much fun.
Yep.
Like that was awesome. All that stuff was good. But yeah, the man, it was fun because there's a part where Deadpool says like, hey nerds, you're going to get what you always wanted, right? Like we're going to really fight. And he was not lying. Like they went at it. Like the 3 main fight scenes. It's funny. There's like it's like the 2 of them at the beginning. the two of them in the car.
The car, yeah.
Which is like, good job, stunt people, because this is dope. This is a dope ass fight scene, and then the big one at the ending with the Deadpools.
Oh, the old boy shot.
If you haven't watched the movie, we should watch this movie. If you haven't
please,
seen it.
no.
Sorry if we're spoiling stuff for you because it's amazing.
Yeah,
I'm so glad. And here's the thing: I never watched a trailer past the first trailer.
That's right.
So I didn't know anything. I actually had forgot. Well, Cassandra Nova being in it got kind of ruined for me, but that's just stuff, it's hard to avoid some of it.
Yeah, well, especially people just talking about it overall, where they're just like, oh man, yeah, I heard Cassandra Nova's in it. It's like, oh, you heard that? Cool. Well, then I guess I know it now.
Well, part of the problem is that if you actually pay attention to comic books, like we're already saying, it's like, if you're paying attention to comics and you're paying attention to like what's hot in comics, which includes like what's selling in comics.
Yeah.
The moment word gets out, like a character is in something, people talk about it because they're like, oh, the speculator market is like, we should go buy these first appearance of this character. So even a hint of a character, it's like how hard they try to keep it that like, Red Hulk was going to be in Captain America. It's like the jig was up like 2 years ago, right? It was like, we were just waiting to see if it was really going to happen or not, you know? So, but I don't really think I had any complaints about that movie. I really had a blast, dude. It was fun. We left and then we dove right back into it. It was kind of crazy of a day because it was like, I was thinking about this at night where I was like, okay, so I went to see Deadpool Wolverine in the morning, Jim Lee and Friends panel immediately afterward, doing whatever we were doing the rest of the day, like interviews and stuff the rest of the day. And I was doing the rest of the day I did some all interviews, but I was doing G.I. Joe stuff the rest of the day, Energon Universe stuff the rest of the day.
Yeah.
Finalized the panel for Energon Universe at 5:30, ran to my room, got ready, and then went to the Eisners, lost at the Eisners.
Yeah.
And then I was okay. I didn't have any, I don't know. I feel like I'm a very measured person, I guess.
Well,
like,
you didn't. I mean, I was there too. I did see you throw your glass across the room.
That's not what happened.
No, that is not what happened. No,
I felt.
You were like, all right, cool. You know what? That's my name up there.
I always feel like I was more worried about my other friends that lost.
Yeah.
That I was more like, are you guys okay? And I was like, are you all right with this? You okay with this? I mean, Tom. I lost to Tom and Bruno, and I figured I was going to lose to them. You did. So I immediately went over and said hi to them. Congratulations. But they're like my friends, Yeah. But I was more concerned. I had other people who I'm friends with who lost. And so it was much more, that's just how my brain works. It's like, I'm just like, I'm good, guys. Don't worry about it. Are you guys okay? Like, it's just how my brain works. And so even in that moment, because I had friends that lost like right before me and right after, it's like, so that's really where my head was at. And also we were going to be there for a bit. And I'd never been to the Eisner before, so it was just like an interesting experience.
Oh wow, that was really like the first, because that was my third. Yeah. And
oh really? No, I've never been ever. Usually because it's like, I go hang out with people at dinner and drink stuff and do usually have DC stuff, and so that was so I was also much more about that. Like I was like, I have no idea what this is, so it's like being there for that, and that was really fun. And then after that was over, it was midnight. So it was like, I talked to a couple of friends. I saw Tim Seeley. What was really funny was when Tim Seeley came out, and I said, and I love San Diego Comic-Con. It's my favorite convention. I've gone every year, since I was 14 years old. Exactly. I really appreciate being in there. It really made me appreciate the Eisners and like the amount of work that they do to put that on. It's like, it is much bigger production than I thought it was.
That's the thing. So it's an impressive show. Like the way they, just in like, terms of the scope.
Yeah, it felt fancy. People were nice. So I was like, this is really cool. And at one point when they were talking about who was best new series, Tim Seeley and Tony Fleece were nominated for Local Man, and they announced Tim as Tom Seeley.
Yeah.
And I didn't find this out till later, but they also Tony, I think they called him Tony Fleek or something like that. I didn't hear that. I heard Tom Seeley, and so when it was over, you bet your ass I made a beeline for Tim Seeley, and I started calling him Tom Seeley.
Yo, Tom!
Dude, I hugged him, and I was like, that's so good. It was the first time I had seen him. I literally made a beeline for him, and then I hugged him and I said, "So good to see you, Tom Seeley." I talked to Tom King, youngest. Him and Tim are tight, so I talked to King for a while, and then I disappeared.
You did.
I mean, you know this. We've talked about this before. Like I will disappear. Like I don't like to say goodbye, because if once you say goodbye, this happened to me in New York last year. We were at a party, and I was like, I was hanging out with Rom V and Tom Taylor, and I was like, okay, guys, I'm gonna leave. And they were like, you're gonna leave? And I'm like, yeah. And they were like, don't you fly out in the morning? And I'm like, yeah, but I'm gonna go. Bye, guys. It's time.
But I'm gonna go to bed.
And they were like, you're not gonna say bye to anybody? And I'm like, nah, man, I'm out. And we're in the back of this bar. And so
you gotta go through the bar.
I gotta make it through this thing and just make it through. Don't acknowledge anybody. Just get my coat, get to the elevator, and go. And then I'm like gonna walk to New York and then fly first thing. My flight was like 6 a.m. or something.
Yeah.
And freaking Alex Packnadil, he sees me leaving and he goes, "Josh, are you leaving?" And I was like, "God damn it!" And then a bunch of people heard that.
Oh, sure.
And so then it became like, I guess now I'm staying. I gotta say goodbyes to everybody.
Yes.
And, hug and do the thing and like, oh, good to see you, and the whole thing. And so I will try my very best to just get out.
Yeah.
And so at that I was just like, I pulled Tom aside. I'm like, I'm leaving. And he was like, "What? No, you gotta stay." I was like, "I will see you tomorrow morning," because we have breakfast. Like we always have breakfast on Saturday morning. So I'm like, I have to go. Bye. Like,
I can't do this anymore.
Got to the street and was just like, made it and walked around the ocean back to my hotel. Was very happy. Nice. Just got out of there. But it was such a crazy day. And then Saturday we're like, just right back in it, just nonstop. It was like I met Tom at 8:30 in the morning, and I was doing comic book stuff until until 3:30 in the morning.
Oh yeah.
At that point, it's just us hanging out, But did the whole more meetings, more panels, more stuff, more interviews, just all day.
Yeah.
But it was cool. I mean, it was fun. It was a good convention. Like it was, I have no complaints.
Yeah. This one was fun. I had a fun time. I like this show. I think it's a good show, and it's sprawling and epic and fun. But like I don't know. This one was not as the best part. Might have been just going to see Deadpool,
dude. That was one of the best parts. Easily. You and I going.
That was dope. That was worth going. Like that was the reason to go.
What's next year? Is next year Fantastic Four and Superman?
Superman and Fantastic Four. Holy shit!
All right,
yeah.
We might be able to sneak off and see Fantastic Four. I imagine I will see Superman before.
I feel like you might have an inside track for Superman.
It might happen.
I would hope.
It might happen. I mean, I never like to leave my house.
Yeah. But the thing with
they always invite me to the screenings. I've never actually gone to one.
You've never been to a screening? Even I've been to a screening at Warner Brothers.
No. I've been to. Well, no, wait. Well, I've been to screenings in general, but not since working at DC again.
Oh.
No, we went and saw. I went to one screening. Actually, that's not true. I went to one screening. It was the night before we announced Rebirth. They did a screening but it was interesting because we went and saw Batman versus Superman, and the bottom level was for people, like fans. I can't remember if they won a contest or something like that, but it was for fans. And then the balcony was only for creators. Cool. And that was how we went to see it. But a lot of people, I talked to Juergens about this. He had gone to the actual premiere earlier in the week. Because he was sitting behind me. I was talking about this with him, but I could have swore, I asked him this recently, I could have swore when Doomsday came out in that movie that Dan's wife started cheering like crazy because she was there. In my memory, she was just like, yes, like, yeah, Doomsday. And I talked to Dan about this, and Dan was like, that never happened. And I was like, you were sitting behind me. I'm positive of this.
Yeah.
I'm positive
of
this. But Dan's like one of my favorite people in comics. He's like somebody I like to talk to about DC stuff, but also just advice about writing and stuff. But yeah, he was like, that Josh, that never happened. I'm like, I swear to you, your wife, you were sitting behind me, your wife was like, yeah, Doomsday. And he was like, nope, that did not happen. Nope. But no, I've never been able to go to anything before. Years ago, I went to a screening. I did go to a screening but it was like a editorial / creator screening. So it wasn't like a big, it was like middle of the day kind of thing.
Yeah.
For Dark Knight Rises.
Oh, that's cool.
Dark Knight Rises. That was when I went to. But again, these are like I'm not like as embedded in DC as I've been the last few years, like doing that. But having to go to that, I imagine I will. I imagine that this one I will go to. I would want to because it's like I write Superman. I like
Superman. Yeah.
As James Gunn has talked about it, and James Gunn has called it like the summer of Superman and stuff. It's like I'd like to do that, but this convention was funny with that stuff because it's also the first time in a while that I've like Scott and I were like attached to the hip for a lot of it.
Yeah,
because like last few years he's been doing other stuff. This was his first time doing like a big panel for DC in a while, and so it was interesting doing that with him because him and I did 2 panels together. And
did.
It's been the last time he and I did a panel together might be 2019.
That makes sense. Yeah,
maybe metal, like for like lead into death metal Justice League stuff. I think because 2020 is when it came out, but we were like in it
exactly.
In the pandemic stuff. But it was really fun, and also to see the response. Oh, this is really funny. So everyone watching this is like, yes, I am not wearing a suit.
No, that's true. Yeah, after the epic DC live stream that looked a lot like this show, but but
I was wearing a suit. I was wearing a suit. And I had
no suit today.
I had to take down my cosmic cube. I couldn't have that in the background.
You got to put a mother box in front of it.
Yeah. No, I just straight up was. They always ask. They're always like, "Do you have anything DC, anything non-DC related?" And at the time, I was like, "No, we're good." Oh, maybe hold on. No, I don't think they want the cosmic cube chilling in the background. But it was fun, and I think the response to All In has been really strong. Like it feels like people are very excited. There's a good vibe. There's a good hype. I always feel like I have a weird perspective on things, and I've made myself more and more aware of this over the years because I don't pay attention to the internet at all. I don't really know what is like the hot thing. So even with Energon Universe stuff, it took me a minute. Because sales is really what does it, but it took me a minute to realize what was doing well, and as you and I are aware, the internet lies. So it's like you don't always, even when people say something's big on the internet, that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah,
that's like it was that phrase? Rolling was like you're big in Germany or whatever. It's like David Hasselhoff,
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this musician doesn't work here, but they're big overseas. It's like that's basically the internet, where something can be really big on the internet and it is not big in reality.
Yeah.
So it's hard when I have no real gauge anymore other than people talking to me, and that's why going to something like San Diego is important because you can see people at panels, you can see them at signings, you can see them walking up, and they're all very excited. And DC had that booth; they had the giant, Nick the Dragata Absolute Batman.
Yeah,
they were giving away those ash cans. Scott and I signed so many all-in posters.
Yeah,
so many. Now I remember at one point we were signing the posters, and I was like, I'm just so glad they're giving these posters away,
right?
Because when I was a kid, that was what I loved about going to San Diego Comic-Con was free shit.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh no.
If they had posters or pins or ash cans that were giveaways, buddy, let me tell you, I was hell yeah.
Oh yeah.
Mean, I was talking to Jimmy Palmiotti about this because they gave away copies of this Marvel Knights ash can, and
that's cool.
I have mine signed. I told him I actually forgot to do this. I have to message him. Mine is signed clearly by Jimmy and Joe. Clearly Jimmy and Joe. There is a third signature on it. I think we talked about this before. I don't know whose signature it is, but I looked it up. It is Kevin Smith's signature. I do not remember meeting him at that show, and I met him before. I've met Kevin Smith a few times, but I don't remember at that particular. Because I was talking to Jimmy about this, and I was like, "Oh,
he might have signed them all ahead of time."
That's my guess. So it was back in 1998, and so I told Jimmy. Him and I were talking about it, and I told him I'd take a picture and send it to him to be like, "Is this Kevin?" He was like, "It has to be Kevin."
If it's a K and a line, it's Kevin Smith.
Hold on, let me see here. Okay, so this is Joe right here. Clearly, the big Q is Joe.
Yep.
This is Jimmy, because I know Jimmy's. This is Jimmy's.
Okay, yeah.
But right here is a K, and
that's Kevin Smith's.
Okay, Kevin Smith. All right. Joe Quesada is one of my favorite artists of all time, and I was so into Event comics. Like everything Event made, I was getting. Like I loved Ash.
Oh, you're a big Ash fan.
Hell yeah, I was a big Ash fan. Let me tell you.
I got my Ash Azrael crossover on the shelf.
Oh yeah, dude. Yes. Yeah. I have it over here. I was a big fan of Ash, and so when I heard they were doing this, part of me was disappointed. Me as a fan of comics in the 90s, I was like a roller coaster because I remember when the Image partners left, I was like, oh man, fuck them. I was so mad. And then, you know, like a year in, I'm just like, I have every copy of every Image book.
Yep.
I'm buying every book that comes out. I'm like, oh, Eric Larson just released Dart. I'm going to buy a Dart mini, you know, like every single, and that's no offense to Dart. You know, it's like,
no, it's just like, no matter how obscure, I don't care what it is. I'm in.
Yeah, I had it all. I had it all. So I was just like, oh, you're yeah, whatever it was that was coming out, I was getting.
Yeah.
And then, you know, it was fun when they went back to Marvel and they were doing this stuff. But then when Joe Quesada was doing, I was disappointed he wasn't going to keep doing X Factor.
Yeah.
But when they were doing Ash, I was like, this book is amazing. This is so cool. I loved it. And then when they were going to go to Marvel Knights, I was like, oh man, they're going back. Like I was, you know. But then you read Daredevil #1, you're like, oh, this is so good. This is just that stuff is really, really great. That's one of my things I want to figure out how to do. I think I have that big oversized Daredevil that they put out recently. That was
nice,
like a big version of it.
Yep.
That is one that like I wish I could. A while back there was an auction that had a bunch of art from it. It was from Kevin Smith. I think I told you it was Kevin Smith's like personal.
The auction. I remember we were doing this show when it was going live. We're like, oh my god, we gotta go. We gotta look. Yeah.
Dude, I bought a bunch of stuff from that one, but. Yeah, but it is fun when you go posters and stuff and free things. Like my daughter, I walked by a Monster High booth and they were giving pins away, and I walked over and talked with them about Monster High.
Sure.
And I was like, and I was talking about the characters, and they were like, "Oh, you actually know it." I'm like, "Well, actually pay attention."
Right.
You know, like when my kids telling me about the stuff they love, I actually do pay attention to it. And they were like, "Well, here's a free Monster High pin." And I was like, "Great!" So I got to get to my daughter when I got home. Nice. But I was just like, "What can I?" It was funny with my son because I was like, all the stuff that my son is into, they don't really have, you know?
Yeah.
Like my son's like favorite character in the world is Yoshi.
Interesting. So, okay, yeah, it was underrepresented at the show this year.
Yeah, it's not a Nintendo thing. I think if I would love to take him to like Super Mario Land or something like that, you know, and stuff, and I think he'll have a blast with that. He'll love that because his favorite character is Yoshi. He talked all the time. He got when I got back. He had bought a Yoshi shirt, or my wife had bought him. He didn't buy anything. He doesn't want money.
He didn't buy anything.
He knows what coins are. It's very funny. He talks about his coins. Yeah. He's got his coins. He loves his coins. But it was funny because he's losing a tooth, and my daughter explained the whole tooth fairy thing to him, and she was just like, you get money. No, she was like, you get money. And he was just like, I have no idea what you're talking about. What is money?
Right.
But she bought him a Yoshi shirt, and he was just like super pumped about a Yoshi shirt.
Nice.
But yeah, it was fun that we were giving the posters away because that's the stuff that's like, this is it. You know, this is fun. Even and going to Energon Universe panels, we went to that, and then I went to a G.I. Joe Classified Hasbro panel where they were talking about the new toys that were coming. It was funny. There were times they would like, There are characters we're talking about that we want to do for G.I. Joe. We're just like debating, you know, because we talk about all of them, you know, like and the idea of like want to make sure we introduce them in the best way possible.
Yep.
And there was a point where we were sitting there and we were like, they showed one of the characters and I was just like, I'm putting them in the book. Like, you know, leaned over to Skybound and I was like, I'm gonna do this. Okay. But we gave away the ash cans for G.I. Joe as well.
I heard about that. Yeah.
I should have saved one for you. I should have got you one. Did you get a Batman ash can?
I did because I went to the All In panel, so I got the ash can.
How were we? Oh, you told me we already talked about this.
We talked about this, but I mean, like, so the All In panel was great. It was standing room only, really packed crowd. Everybody,
it was good vibe. That was the first San Diego I felt like was normal San Diego, like normal energy, everybody pumped, people excited. The All In panel. I mean, we talked about it. Was funny because you know that I'm a talker.
Yeah.
And that was a panel where it was not about me.
so you were like, all right.
I was like very quiet, like boiling over of like energy and wanting to be like, and wanting to talk, but having to wait my turn.
Yep. Having to wait your turn. Although, I was surprised because Wade was on that panel. I hadn't seen him in a lot of panels in a long time. And, dude like has no problem holding court and doing the whole thing, but like he seemed a little reserved, and I was like, I hope he gets to be on more panels because he needs to, because he's so good at it. He's so good at talking. He's so good at telling stories.
He's awesome. I love talking to Mark about everything.
Right? Anytime I can, I will. Yeah.
talked about Superman a lot on a Saturday night. We had dinner and we just sat there and talked about Superman basically all dinner long. And,
that's awesome.
And he, because this is out now because he's writing Action for the Action Weekly. I'm not like spoiling anything for All In stuff. If somebody wants to know more about All In, you could watch that video. And I think at some point I'll probably do a newsletter talking more about my role in All In and sort of what, Scott and I built and how like, basically Scott and I have been talking about All In for like, man, it might have been 2019. Like we were really like, oh, we have this idea for this story. We could do this. And we were like, maybe that's how death metal ends. And it was like, obviously that didn't happen. And we were kind of like, there was a lot going on. And Scott was like, he wanted to go and do Creator Own for a bit. And it just didn't work out with their plans. But then 2 years ago, we started talking with them about it some more. And we were like, no, we still have this idea we really like, this thing we could do, because we'd always been told that the two initiatives back in 2019, we were told the two initiatives that did the best were New 52 and Rebirth. And there was always this debate of like, everyone's impulse is always like, oh, do you go backwards or do you new? And I was always like, you have a menu with multiple items on it.
So, you don't have to do one thing.
Yeah, we could do two, And so I remember one time calling Scott and just being like, I think that's how you do it. I think you try to do both at the same time. And that fit with what we were talking about. And so we were like, well, what if we just did the new Crazy, but also doing like opportunities for Crazy over in what we call the core line.
Exactly.
As we built out this story, this mystery, and basically it was much more about Scott and I being like, okay, here's this thing, and here are the toys on the table, and then everyone goes and plays. So like Jason Aaron and Kelly Thompson come in and grab them.
Yeah, so exciting.
Like, people can come in and grab stuff, and then on the core line, people can come in. Like I was just talking to Chris Condon yesterday about Green Arrow plans, and so it's like people can come in and go, okay, I'm gonna grab this, I'm gonna grab that, and then just have fun with it, and that's what we've been doing. We talk about that a little bit in the video, and Scott has talked about it a lot in his newsletter. I'll probably do a newsletter when we get closer to FOC about it. But it was fun doing that, and then just being able to like, just fun being out there with it. But with Mark too, like Mark being on the panel, I thought he did a really good job. And he's able to and talk about absolute power.
Oh yeah.
But I think also a lot of us, this is the funny thing, and you and I talk about this. Sometimes it's tough to talk about things that are happening right now because our brains are a year out.
Exactly. So it's like absolute power. I wrote that like a year ago.
Yeah, you're like, what? You're like,
and people are still getting like tidbits about what's happening. Like it's issue 2. Issue 2's dropped. That's it.
It just came out today, dude.
Exactly.
I feel like it's funny because I feel like, my brain is so far out in the future, and I know this is the way with a lot of creators. So every once in a while, when it's your first time talking about it, you kind of be careful because you might start talking about shit that happens in issue 4,
right?
And just blow it. You know what I mean? So be careful. You're all like, you have to rethink your brain of like, wait, where am I in the story? Okay, I'm here. So it kind of slows you down. But Mark did another panel on Saturday. I think he did the multiverse panel.
Yeah,
and he just, like you said, holds court. I love going to panels where it's like, I've been to 2 of my favorite Mark Waid panels that he did. Was one where he went and he did the try to get Mark Waid.
Oh, the Stump Mark Waid, yes.
Stump Mark Waid panels are always really fun.
We got to do that ourselves. We got to co-op that.
Yeah, you should definitely do one of those with him. He'll get you though. He'll win.
Oh, I know.
If it's DC stuff, he'll win. There's no way you're gonna beat him. I actually know. I think I know his blind spot. I'm not gonna say right now, but
no,
I think
I don't give it away.
So I would love to just be like, just nonstop questions about his blind spots.
Yeah,
just to see if it was funny. We had this conversation. I'm curious about this with you too. I'll ask you this as well after.
Yeah.
But then Mark, my other favorite panel was pitch Mark Waid panels.
Oh, I like that idea.
And
wow,
those are really fun. This is when he was doing. I think it was called Thrill Bent.
Yes,
and so you could pitch Mark Waid something, and he would say yes or no on the panel.
That's cool.
And those were awesome to watch because you were just like, man, some people do not know how to pitch to save their life.
No, well, like it's a tough.
But then some people
have it. Yeah.
And it was awesome. It was fun to watch. But so I'm asking this question.
Right.
This goes into what I was saying about Mark Waid. Do you have? I know you know a lot too. You've read a lot of comics. You're like me. We've read a lot. We have a lot of information up here that is filled with this, and we're
yeah.
What are your blind spots? Do you have a blind spot?
I have too many blind spots because there's a lot of very selective. Like I had my gateways, my entry points into each universe. Like when it came to Image and that like interconnected universe that lasted a little while, it was Spawn. And with Marvel it was Spider-Man, with Batman, or with DC it was Batman. And thanks to Death of Superman, I learned a lot of stuff about like very, very niche Superman stuff. Like I know who Double X is, and I'm familiar with like the iterations of Kel-X and stuff like that. But stuff that's like, who cares? But through that, I got to learn all
You
this.
say Kel-X? You don't say Kelix?
I say Kel-X.
Oh man, this is fascinating.
I know it's two E's. It should be Kelix, actually, now that I think about it.
You're probably right. I mispronounce it all the time.
I've never heard it. I only say, I have a friend who he used to think that it was hyperbole instead of hyperbole because he never heard it out loud. Like there's so many of those.
Character for a minute. I'm like, who?
Yeah, no, I mean a human.
The other day I was reading a Superman book to my son, and there was a part where she was reading the book, and then she got to something, but she was in another room. I could hear her. She was in another room. Mm-hmm. She got to a part, and she was like, I am not even going to say that name. I'm not going to try. And then she skipped, and I was like, I know exactly what she was. And so then she came in, and I was like, it's Mixelpidalic. And she was like, what?
Yeah.
And I was like, listen, just say Mixie.
Yeah, Mixie.
None of us ever pronounce it. Just say Mixie. It's all you got to do. And even then, I might be saying it wrong. I'll call Mark and ask him.
Yeah, well, and I have it from the animated series. I remember Gilbert Gottfried specifically giving us like visual aids. I've pronounced it Migza Spitlick, but the spittle is apparently the official DC sanctioned description. So you're right, and I'm not when it comes to Migza Spitlick. I say Migza Spitlick because that's what Gilbert Gottfried said in the animated series, but DC says spittle.
I say Mixie, and I call it a day.
That's fair.
Because it's we all know what you mean. We all know what you mean.
And back in the day, it was so rare it was going to come up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, it's funny because I think that Mixie is like one of the harder characters to write, and it's why I did it. This has come up a couple times. I was talking with Mark, and then Jason, Aaron, and I were talking when he pitched his idea for Absolute Superman. We were talking about villains and stuff, just because like I always. When people are pitching me their books for like DC books, I always ask what their villains are. Are they going to do a new villain? Who's this? Just because I'm also curious because I love people's ideas for things. And I think it's really, I love it. It's like, I love listening to people talk about their ideas for stories in general.
Right.
Especially when you can tell they're like into it,
Yeah.
When they're feeling it and they're excited. That's like awesome, Mm-hmm. But we were talking about stuff and we were having this whole conversation about different villains, just in general, like talking about all the different villains that are out there and how I really like all of his villains. And I was just like, I told Jason, I was like, if you ever have a Mixie idea, I would love to hear it because I think Mixie's the hardest character to write for his villains. And I just want to know, I'm always curious, like, what are you going to do?
What are you going to do with
what are you going to do with that character? And for me, I did a Superman Batman annual that was drawn by my guy Gleb, Melnikov. Who else was it? Dale Eaglesham was in there.
Nice.
Clayton Henry was in there, and we did this. We did an annual where it was Batmite and Mixie arguing about who would win, Superman and Batman.
Yeah.
And I will never write those characters again after that. It was really fun, but I was like, I did it. Check.
Right.
Off the thing. I feel at this point I've written not every character. I feel like I've written a lot of the characters for DC. There's a million Green Lanterns that I've never had their name before.
Yeah.
But with Daniel, we make this joke, but it's serious. Oh, so you saw on the panel where Danny and I were talking about how like it's funny because so when you look at me and Tom and Tom's Wonder Woman, like Danny was drawing Dark Crisis, and every issue I would have to send him this huge list of characters, and I would break them down by what their powers were, could they fly or not, because that was important for
scenes. You got to put him floating over other people. And
Danny does know a lot about DC. He knows a lot of the characters, so it was really great working with him, and he knows a lot about the events, and he went through and reread all the events in prep for it. He knew a lot of stuff, and so he was able to incorporate that into it, but I was just nonstop. I think I told you a story before where it was like there's a 2-page spread, either 6 or 7, and he drew 51 characters in the 2-page spread, and I was like, just draw a tiny atom on somebody's shoulder just to get them to do. But I was like, nah, I'm gonna leave this guy alone. He's gonna kill me, And so I would literally, it wasn't a joke. I literally be like, I'm sorry, because there's so many characters in there. And then he goes and does Wonder Woman with Tom, and the first issue, there's a whole scene where it's Wonder Woman in the snow by herself.
Yep,
it's like just the opposite of what I was making him do, where I'm like, all right, here's the deal. Hall of Justice is on fire. and the Great Darkness is coming down, and so the sky is now black, and here's what's happening.
Yeah.
And then here is the list of characters who are in this fight scene. I will see you in 2 weeks.
Yep.
Good job.
Yeah.
And then for Tom, I remember because Danny and I are friends, and so we would talk every once in a while, and Danny would just be like, "My life is good. I have my nights and my weekends. I go to the beach." It's like the totally different experience. It's just like it's also Tom, so it's like I had to draw a 9-panel grid where it was the same thing for all 9 panels.
Yes, that's true.
So he's like, "Oh, life is good." And then when I found out he was going to do the book, I was like, "Oh, this is great. This is perfect." But then I was like, "Dude," I'm like, there's so many characters in this.
Yeah, it's gonna get crowded. Yeah,
we're gonna start showing art from it pretty soon. And I was just like, "Oh, Danny," I was like, there's so many 2-page spreads with so many characters in here, and it's just there's so much going on.
Yeah.
I was like, how do I find ways to help my brother out and not like drive him crazy?
Yeah, maybe Adam Smash are gonna be in front of everybody. Like,
yeah. Oh, I'm always trying to find cheats for them. I always try to find ways to cheat and stuff. And so, I was able to get in there. But Danny drew the shit out of it. It's so great. Like the stuff he did is amazing. Wes Craig's pages, every single page is breathtaking. It is. Nice. I mean, it's interesting how they're both such different artists, but they were talking, and so there's stuff because it's a flip book. I think people would be surprised by some of the innovative stuff we did with it being a flip book.
Nice.
I think that I'm all for people buying it digitally if you want to, but I do feel like it is a better experience because it's a flip book. If you bought it in the comic book store, if you bought a physical copy of it, it's a different experience, and you're going to get what I consider the real true experience with it because it is a flip book.
Yep.
And because of what happens in the story and how the story is told, it actually really makes sense for it to be a flip book.
Right.
So I'm hoping that people, when they buy it, that's what they do. They print because it's going to be a much better reading experience than if you didn't. And because you can basically read both sides. There's no you can decide to read on the Superman side or the Dark side. You don't doesn't
need
matter. Yeah, there's no like, oh, you better read this one first.
Right.
It's written in a way where it's 2 parallel journeys, so it doesn't matter which side you read it on.
Cool.
But you should definitely read that way. But it was like, Wes's stuff is awesome. There's stuff in there that as a DC like nerd,
right,
I was like, here are the things that I want from this. And then when Wes drew the pages, I emailed Wes and I was just like, I might buy these pages from you because we're fulfilling nerd things that I want personally.
Yeah.
Things so I kind of want those things. Like there's stuff that happens on both sides. It's pretty crazy, but there was one thing in particular I personally have wanted to see like since I was a kid.
Yeah.
It is my own little personal. I'll tell you after. It is my only personal nerdy like one of those things where it's like it just never worked out in terms of like I never had an opportunity to do that in the books, and then we finally did it, and I'm like, that is super cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be really interesting when that comes out and how people respond to it and how they see what the messaging of it is and how big the story we're telling is and stuff. But yeah, it was interesting experiencing that at the convention and seeing.
Oh, I bet.
And yeah, when we were doing the signings, people coming up to us, like going to the panels, and they were just all excited and happy. And, But yeah, it was a good. It's a good show. It was good San Diego. Yeah, it was good. It was good hanging out with you.
Oh, of course.
We should record. I was thinking about when we were on our way there. I was like, we should just be recording.
We should be recording now. Yeah.
Yeah, we should be we should sit in the front and just record.
Oh my
weird
God.
people at the theater.
Oh yeah,
just on the theater. Chances are, I bet you there is somebody in that theater who watches this show. I bet you.
I hope
if they knew, they probably would have.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, they probably would have said something about it. Or they're probably very familiar with you.
Yeah, I think they were at the con. I think those people who know the show, they were like either if they're in San Diego, they were at the convention.
Oh yeah, dude, watch it before. That's like the number one thing I get. Like people say that they watch this show and stuff, and they just really love it. And I'm like, awesome, thank you.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, take away from a kid. No,
okay. I have an all-in question for you.
Oh yeah, sure.
By the way, my actual
blind spot. You never said
my actual answer to you is the Legion of Superheroes. I know virtually nothing about them, and I it's one of those like I'm very disconnected.
Oh my God, no, you gotta. Okay,
I know.
You should pick one. You should pick one version of it.
Yeah,
I personally recommend reading, if it's in order, is reading the 0 Hour one because it's Mark Waid, it's Tom Pear, it's I think it's the I think that's the one to do because it's also there's a lot of it. It's like 10 years worth of comics you can read.
Right.
It's my personal favorite. That's why, everyone has their favorite, and we've learned everyone's favorite is the one they read first.
Of course.
So that's my favorite.
Yep.
But I definitely think you should check it out
if
you can. If you have no interest at all, don't at all. But
no, I will.
I feel like it's very DC.
Yeah.
It's very DC. That's funny. That's your blind spot. My blind spot for DC is Doom Patrol. I don't know that much about
that's fair.
Patrol. So it was tough when like Dennis would be working on Doom Patrol and like want me to read stuff or ask me questions, and I'm like, dude, this is one of the for DC in particular, this is a blind spot for me. When it comes to Marvel and DC, I feel like I don't have too many blind spots. That's why with Doom Patrol, it's like such a glaring.
Yeah,
it is such a glaring.
And you can fill that void. Like you just need the omnibus. Like you're good to go. Like it's just like if you just read. Morrison, you're done. Outside of although I will say
there's so much.
The Way run is great.
Oh, I didn't read any of that. I've never read any of there's the Rachel Pollack stuff.
Oh yeah,
the Grant stuff, and then I did read.
Dennis is run. I'm sure.
Ranking on his. I did read. I'm blanking on his name right now. The one they did in the 90s, or I'm sorry, the 2000s. That was a different team. It was just Robot Man, and it was a different team.
Mm-hmm.
Between the years 86, I'll say 86, and 2010, I feel like I read like every single DC book.
You've got it.
It's like there's some. I guess my blind spot is there are things that happened in New 52 that I'm not as plugged in on. Some of the Green Lantern stuff. I know some of it. I know some of it. I know all the Flash stuff.
Oh yeah.
There's Superman stuff that I don't always know from that window. But it's like that Superman and Lois are gone.
Right.
Like those two are gone. So it's like, Convergence on.
Oh yeah.
When Clark and Lois returned, like I know that because I read Convergence.
Of course.
So it's like there are certain things in there I kind of blank out on, but for the most part, I feel like it's interesting hearing people's blind spots. Okay, I'll tell you what my secret blind spot for a very long time was, and this will surprise people because people, I'm very protective of these characters, and I feel very passionate about them now, and I feel very like I'm not sure the right words for this, but the Titans.
Yeah,
I did not read any Titans books for a long time, and I started reading the Titans in probably like post 0 Hour.
Right.
And so but I was, even then it was like kind of all over the place.
I
kind of read it, not really. Jeff's Teen Titans is probably the first time I bought like a brand new Teen Titans comic off the shelf and dove into it, and then read it all the way through, to issue 100 when it ended right before New 52.
Yeah.
But it's like, that was really when I was like into it. I have now read a lot of it, and I have, a lot of the trades down here, and I have the stuff over here. So I was able to like dive right into it. But yeah, there was a humongous window where I did not know it that well. And so there were moments, but this is like back in the day. Now I know it really well, but that was a huge blind spot for me for a long time. I just did not know the Titan stuff really well, especially the Wolfman Perez stuff. I just didn't know it.
So that's the only one I really did know was like the Wolfman Perez stuff. That's the one that I was like, thanks to Wizard and stuff, I was like, well, that's the one to know. And I'm like, all right, well,
I knew. I guess what I would say to you is I knew what happened.
Sure,
but
reading him week to week or month to month, it was like,
but knowing it's different. It's different if you're like, I'm aware of what happened, but it's like I know the big beats because of, you absorb it. Also, it's funny because like if you're reading like let's say you're reading Jeff's JSA. Jeff's JSA would reference older stories, and so you would kind of learn about some of those older stories
through other stories. Yeah.
But then it's like, oh, I guess I should read that. Like, 'cause I wasn't a big Bronze Age Justice League person.
Yeah,
and now I've read a lot of it. There's a lot of stuff in there I really, really like. But But I'm not like Mark, where Mark is like, I've read every single DC book ever published or whatever. It's like I was never that person, but I am that person when it comes to 90s. I'm like, that's why with Tom, that's why I feel like when it comes to the 90s, I know it so well, and that's why with 90s and 2000s, I know it pretty well, and that's why with Tom is like, I don't know about any of that stuff. It's like, he knows it now. He's read a lot of stuff now, but I mean, at that point, when Tom and I first started hanging out, there were times we would talk about stuff, and I'm like, how do you not know all this?
Right? Even through osmosis,
well, Tom knows Bronze Age stuff really well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can.
So it's like we all have our little balance. We all have our thing that we know and we don't know.
What's your biggest blind spot for some of your most beloved characters? Like, do you have a blind spot for like you have a run where you're like, I skipped it? Because like I have one for Spider-Man where it's like I've read every Spider-Man comic in existence except when Ben Reilly died and they took.
We talked about this because
where Ringo took over. Like it was like the Gathering of Five, all like the Norman Osborn stuff,
Peter
like,
David and all that. Yeah,
like I missed that like weird like late '90s Spider-Man. Like between like Howard Mackey and JMS, there is that window where I'm like, I don't know. Like Mary Jane she exploded in a plane, but didn't really like all that stuff. I'm like, I know what happened. Like that. Like I know what happened, but I didn't read it. And they don't stuff.
For Spider-Man, oh man. Okay, well with Spider-Man, I think there's a few like side titles.
Oh, like Web of Spider-Man, like Deadly Foes.
There's probably Spectacular is the one that I haven't read all of. Like there's stuff in Spectacular that I don't really know that well, and Spectacular was always like the Daily Planet one.
Yeah.
So I don't know Spectacular as well as say Amazing. Like Web, I read all of Web.
Same.
I read Web #1. Right,
Yep.
I have read that. I think that's it for me. Spectacular, because I've never not read Spider-Man. I think.
Yeah.
I'm behind right now, but I've never not read Spider-Man, so it's like I feel like I'm not sure if I have any blind spots. I'm trying to think of characters I love. There's like Captain America stuff I haven't read. There's a lot of Iron Man stuff I've read. I love those characters. I'm trying to think of like, Deadpool, as you know, I really love Deadpool, and I've read most of it.
It's hard not to catch all of Deadpool.
Well, that's what when you have like one book, that's where it gets tough, because you're like, oh, there's characters, it gets tough with DC characters.
Oh,
man.
Green Lantern, like which one? Like how do you?
Which book do I have a blind spot with? Yeah, I mean with Green Lantern, I feel like I have a few blind spots with the Green Lantern, but it's like I know the important stuff.
I know the beats, and I know the players, I know the song. Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's a book, a character that I love that I have never read their book or anything like that.
Is there a Flash run? Is there a period during the Flash that you're like, I didn't read it?
I read all of Flash.
See?
No, because Flash is one that I just always read.
Yeah.
One of the few books I got monthly. Same thing with Batman and Detective.
Same.
I mean, listen, I'm not gonna lie, I struggle with New 52.
Yeah.
Like
I skipped a lot of New 52.
If somebody talked to me about Teen Titans during that time period, I would be like, I know it, because I flipped through it, because
you had to.
I have a rule. We talk about whenever I work on a character, I go find their last appearance, and I try to read what their last appearance was, be respectful of the teams before, whoever had them last.
Wherever they ended up, you want to.
Yeah, where they ended up. I try to go through and double check stuff. And that was one that I definitely did not have I'm definitely really excited about it. I think it's just like the energy, I think right now, what everyone is doing in comics. I do feel like there is a really positive push right now. And it's like when you look at what's going on with, Energon Universe, and there's a lot of really great Image books that are coming. And then you have, Marvel's pushing the new X-Men stuff. And then it's like, there's the new Star Wars stuff that's coming in October. And then DC, we're doing this really big all-in push. And it's like having all of these really cool books. I have to be careful. I'm always like, what got announced in San Diego? So I'm like, all the cool stuff that's coming. It's fun. I feel like it's a good time to like go to your comic store and buy a bunch of comics, because there's so much cool stuff coming, ranging from superheroes to create your own and everything in between. It's good. I'm hoping that people just go to the stores, man. That's
same.
That's my hope with all of this. I'm just hoping that everybody in comics. I mean, it's even what Scott was sort of saying in San Diego. It's like All In is bigger than DC to us. It's about like everybody, so it's like getting in stores, being excited, and talking about what you love about comics. Love it. So That's what was one of the best parts of San Diego. Is it was like nonstop that for 5 days, and you and I went and saw Deadpool Wolverine in the middle, and it was terrific.
Yeah. That's a little reminder. And then there was we didn't even talk about it. And I'm not suggesting we do, but and then there was that RGJ announcement that blew the doors off.
Oh yeah. I thought that when I was walking after dinner and I was by myself and I looked at my phone and I thought it was a typo.
Of course. Yeah.
I thought it was a typo. I thought it was like I thought there was a mix up and I thought it was like, oh, Robert Downey Jr. is coming back and then they announced Doctor Doom. Like I thought it was like two things. And then I saw the video and I was just like, the fuck? Like, I was like, what?
Yeah.
What? Yes, I haven't seen you since that. Let's talk about that next time.
I think next time,
That's a much longer conversation.
It is, but it was just like, and that happened too, and it was like, just think about like how, man, like people were riding high on Deadpool Wolverine, and then like Marvel's like, we're not done.
Oh, here's this other crazy thing that makes you, it's interesting, is it makes you speculate, it makes you ask questions.
And that's exactly what we need. Like even
and that's what they needed. Yeah.
Regardless of your in my knee-jerk, I mean, you could see my tweet from like the minute it was announced and it was not positive, but the conversation that's happening about it. Mwah, thank you, Marvel.
Yeah, so next time we talk, it's gonna be a whole other thing. We don't even know what's
new ball game. Yeah. So, oh my god.
It'd be a whole new thing. We could be like, oh, there's all kinds of crazy. So next time we should. So here's what we will talk about this, and we'll talk about that on the next one.
Yes,
we'll get the whole thing. But
excellent.
Okay, everybody.
Thanks for
watching.
Always
good hanging out, Sal, talking about
comic
book. Ask questions, and next time maybe we'll answer them in the thing. If you have questions about anything we talked about, we'll see if we can do it in the next one.
Yeah. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you next time. Bye bye.